Marcus Rodriguez clutched his worn leather portfolio with one hand while his other held tight to his 4-year-old daughter Sophia's tiny fingers. The lobby of Henderson Associates gleamed with polished marble floors and floor-to-ceiling windows, making him acutely aware of his second-hand suit and the small backpack bouncing on Sophia's shoulders. Every eye in the waiting area seemed to follow them as they approached the reception desk, whispers trailing in their wake like shadows. "Daddy, why is everyone looking at us?" Sophia whispered, her voice barely audible above the soft jazz playing overhead. Marcus forced to smile, his heart hammering against his ribs. "They're just curious, Mija. Don't worry about them." But inside, his confidence was crumbling faster than stale bread. 3 months of unemployment had led to this memento, his last shot at a position that could finally provide the stability Sophia deserved. The babysitter had cancelled that morning, and with no family nearby and no money for backup childcare, he'd made the desperate decision to bring his daughter along. The receptionist, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes behind designer glasses, looked up as they approached. Marcus braced himself for rejection, for the polite but firm request to reschedule. "Mr. Rodriguez?" she asked, glancing between him and Sophia with a warm smile. "You must be here for the marketing director position." "Yes, Mom." "I know this is highly irregular," Marcus began, his prepared apology tumbling out. "My childcare fell through this morning, and I couldn't reach anyone to reschedule." "I understand if you need to." "Please, have a seat," she interrupted gently. "I'll let Mr. Patterson know you're here." As they settled into the plush waiting chairs, Marcus noticed the stares intensifying. A woman in a power suit shook her head disapprovingly while typing furiously on her phone. A man in an expensive tie whispered something to his companion, both glancing over with barely concealed judgment. Sophia swung her legs, her light-up sneakers blinking with each movement, completely oblivious to the attention they were drawing. "I brought my coloring book, Daddy," she announced proudly, pulling out a well-worn book and a small box of crayons. "I'll be super quiet, I promise." The sight of his daughter's earnest face, her dark eyes, so full of trust and love, nearly broke him. She shouldn't have to promise to be quiet in a world that should embrace her joy. At 4 years old, Sophia had already learned to make herself small, to accommodate a world that wasn't built for single fathers juggling impossible choices. 20 minutes passed like hours. Marcus watched other candidates come and go, each one shooting curious or judgmental looks at the father-daughter duo tucked in the corner. Sophia had moved on from coloring to quietly singing a song she'd learned at preschool, her voice a soft melody that somehow made the sterile corporate environment feel warmer. "Mr. Rodriguez?" A tall man in his 40s approached, his expression unreadable. "I'm James Patterson, VP of Marketing. I understand you've brought a guest today." Marcus stood quickly, his portfolio nearly slipping from his sweaty palms. "Mr. Patterson, I sincerely apologize. My childcare arrangements fell through, and you're here anyway," Patterson interrupted, his tone neutral. "That says something about your commitment." He glanced down at Sophia, who had looked up from her coloring book with curious eyes. "And who might this young lady be?" "This is my daughter, Sophia," Marcus said, placing a protective hand on her shoulder. Sophia, ever the charmer, beamed up at the executive. "Hi, I'm 4, and I'm being very quiet so Daddy can get a job." Something shifted in Patterson's expression, but Marcus couldn't read it. "Well, Sophia, that's very considerate of you. Shall we head to the conference room?" As they walked through the hallways, Marcus felt the weight of every stare, every whispered comment from employees peering over cubicle walls. This was a mistake. Even if Patterson was being polite, there was no way a Fortune 500 company would hire someone who brought their child to an interview. He was about to apologize again when they reached the conference room, and Patterson opened the door. Inside sat 3 other executives around a polished wooden table, their expressions ranging from surprise to barely concealed disapproval. Marcus's heart sank further as he recognized the setshipper. This wasn't just an interview with Patterson. This was the full panel. "Gentlemen, this is Marcus Rodriguez, and his daughter Sophia," Patterson announced, pulling out chairs. "Marcus, please, have a seat wherever you're comfortable." Marcus chose a chair near the window, thinking Sophia might be distracted by the city view. She climbed into the chair beside him, her small frame nearly swallowed by the executive-sized seat, and immediately pulled out her coloring book. The interview began predictably enough. Marcus answered questions about his marketing experience, his strategic vision, his leadership philosophy. But he could feel the tension in the room, see the sideways glances at Sophia, who was living up to her promise and staying remarkably quiet, focused intently on coloring what appeared to be a rainbow. Then came the curveball. "Mr. Rodriguez," said one of the executives, a stern-faced man whose nameplate read Director of Operations, "this is highly unusual. How do we know this won't become a pattern? That you won't be bringing your child to client meetings or missing important deadlines due to childcare issues?" The question hung in the air like a sword. Marcus felt his cheeks burn, but before he could respond, a small voice piped up. "My daddy never misses anything important," Sophia said, looking up from her coloring book with the fierce loyalty only a child could muster. "He reads me stories even when he's tired, and he makes me breakfast even when we don't have very much food. He's the best daddy in the whole world." The room fell silent. Marcus wanted to disappear into the floor, but Sophia's innocent defense of him somehow gave him strength. "Sophia's right about one thing," Marcus said quietly, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "I don't miss what's important. Yes, I'm a single father. Yes, that means I sometimes have to make difficult choices. But it also means I understand responsibility in ways I never did before. I understand the value of efficiency, of making every moment count. I understand what it means to work not just for a paycheck, but for something bigger than yourself." He paused, looking around the table. "I know bringing Sophia here today was unconventional, but I also know that when someone commits to something, when they show up despite obstacles, that says something about character. I'm here because I believe I can contribute something valuable to your team. The fact that I'm also a father doesn't diminish that, it enhances it." The executives exchanged glances, their expressions unreadable. Marcus braced himself for the polite rejection, the thanks but no thanks that would send them back to the streets and another month of uncertainty. That's when the conference room door opened. "Sorry I'm late, gentlemen," came a voice from the doorway. Marcus turned to see an elderly man in an impeccably tailored suit, his silver hair perfectly styled, his presence commanding immediate attention. Every executive in the room straightened in their chairs. "Mr. Henderson," Patterson stood quickly. "We weren't expecting you." Charles Henderson, the company's CEO and founder, surveyed the room with sharp blue eyes that had seen decades of corporate warfare and triumph. His gaze settled on Sophia, who had looked up from her coloring book and was studying him with the unabashed curiosity of childhood. "And who is this lovely young artist?" Henderson asked, his stern expression softening as he approached their end of the table. "This is Sophia, sir," Marcus said, standing respectfully. "My daughter, I apologize for the unconventional circumstances." Henderson held up a hand, effectively silencing him. "May I see your artwork, Sophia?" Sophia's face lit up as she held up her coloring book, revealing a surprisingly neat rainbow with careful attention to staying within the lines. "It's a rainbow. I made all the colors perfect." Henderson leaned closer, examining the page with the seriousness of an art critic. "This is exceptional work. You know, I have a granddaughter about your age, and her rainbows aren't nearly as precise." He straightened and looked directly at Marcus, then at the other executives. "Gentlemen, could you give me a moment? I'd like to speak with Mr. Rodriguez privately." The room cleared quickly, leaving only Henderson, Marcus, and Sophia. The CEO settled into a chair across from them, his imposing presence somehow less intimidating in the smaller group. 37 years ago, Henderson began, his voice carrying the weight of memory. "I was a single father sitting in a conference room much like this one. My wife had passed away 6 months earlier, and I was barely holding it together. My son was 8, and I'd brought him to what I thought was going to be a routine client meeting because the nanny had quit without notice." Marcus felt his breath catch. "The client took one look at my boy sitting quietly in the corner with his homework and asked me to leave. Said they couldn't trust someone who couldn't manage their personal life to manage their account." Henderson's eyes grew distant. "That rejection changed everything. It made me realize that the business world needed to change. That there was no reason why being a good parent should disqualify someone from being a good employee." Sophia had stopped coloring and was listening with the intense focus children reserve for adult conversations they sense are important. "That's why I started this company," Henderson continued, "to prove that businesses could be both successful and human. We've built our reputation on finding exceptional people, regardless of their circumstances." He leaned forward. "Mr. Rodriguez, I've been watching your interview through the conference room's video system. I've seen how you handled yourself under pressure, how you defended your choices with dignity, and how you've raised a daughter who clearly adores and respects you." Marcus felt tears threatening. "Sir, yeah, I'm not finished," Henderson said with a slight smile. "I've also reviewed your portfolio, your references, your work samples. You're exactly what we've been looking for in a marketing director. But more than that, you're the kind of person we want representing our company values." The CEO stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. "I'm going to do something I should have done years ago." He turned back to Marcus and Sophia. "I'm going to establish an on-site childcare facility for our employees. It's something we should have had long ago, and you've reminded me why it matters." Sophia's eyes grew wide. "Daddy, does that mean other kids can come to work too?" Henderson chuckled. "That's exactly what it means, Sophia. And I'd like your daddy to help me plan it, as our new marketing director." The words hit Marcus like a physical force. "Sir, are you saying?" "I'm saying welcome to Henderson Associates, Mr. Rodriguez. Effective immediately, with a starting salary that I think you'll find more than fair." Henderson reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card, writing something on the back. "This is my personal assistant's number. She'll help you with relocation expenses, sign-on bonuses, and immediate childcare arrangements while we get the facility built." Marcus stared at the card, then at Henderson, then at Sophia, who had abandoned all pretense of quiet behavior and was bouncing in her chair. "Daddy, did you get the job? Did you really get the job?" "I think I did, Major," Marcus whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "I think I really did." Henderson extended his hand for a firm shake. "There's one condition, though." Marcus's heart skipped. "Anything?" sir. Sophia has to promise to show me more of her artwork. I have a feeling she's going to be the most popular critic of our new marketing campaigns." Sophia giggled, the sound bright and joyful in the serious corporate environment. "I promise." "Can I color you a picture right now?" "I would be honored," Henderson said, settling back into his chair. As Sophia bent over her coloring book with renewed purpose, Henderson leaned toward Marcus. "You know, some of my executives in there were concerned about your unconventional interview approach. They were worried about precedent, about professionalism." His eyes twinkled with something that looked like mischief. "I told them they were absolutely right. We are setting a precedent. We're choosing to be the kind of company that recognizes that our employees are whole human beings, not just professional personas." Marcus felt overwhelmed by gratitude, by the sudden shift in his and Sophia's future. "Mr. Henderson, I don't know how to thank you. You thank me by being the exceptional employee I know you are. You thank me by helping us build something better." Henderson accepted a new drawing from Sophia, this one featuring stick figures labeled Daddy, Sophia, and Nice Man. "And you thank me by never forgetting that the most important job you'll ever have isn't the one you do in this building." 3 months later, Marcus stood in the doorway of Henderson Associates' new childcare facility, watching Sophia play with 5 other children whose parents worked in the building. The room was bright and cheerful, filled with toys, books, and art supplies. Through the large windows, he could see other employees stopping by throughout the day to check on their children, no longer forced to choose between career and family. The facility had become a model for other companies, featured in business magazines as a revolutionary approach to work-life balance. But for Marcus, it was simpler than that. It was proof that sometimes, when you're brave enough to bring your whole self to the world, even the parts that don't fit neatly into corporate expectations, you might just find that the world has room for all of you after all. "Mr. Rodriguez?" came a familiar voice. Marcus turned to see Patterson approaching, a smile on his face. The Henderson campaign numbers just came in. Clients thrilled with the family-focused messaging strategy. "Looks like having a 4-year-old consultant was exactly what we needed." Marcus laughed, watching Sophia help a younger child with a puzzle. "She does have pretty good instincts." "That she does." "Henderson wants to see you in his office when you have a moment. Something about expanding the childcare program company-wide." As Marcus headed toward the elevator, he caught sight of his reflection in the polished doors. The same face, the same person who had walked into this building months ago with sweaty palms and a desperate prayer. But everything else had changed. The fear had been replaced by confidence, the desperation by purpose, the isolation by community. Sometimes the most unconventional choices lead to the most extraordinary outcomes. Sometimes bringing your child to a job interview doesn't end your career, it begins a new chapter in corporate humanity. And sometimes, the people who seem to judge you harshest are simply waiting for someone brave enough to show them a different way to be human in an inhuman world.